Hello, everyone. It's the start of a new week, which means the Betting Weekly Dojo, the podcast where we speak about all the things in the world of sports betting, answer your questions, have a few laughs, tell a few stories along the way. I'm delighted to say joining me, as per usual, is my co-host. It is Neil Channing. Before I introduce you to Neil, please hit that subscribe button. Please make sure you can make comment as well on the dojo, and do join us here every Monday or Tuesday when we break down the sporting action for the week. Neil, last week was a monster week. We had the Grand National at the weekend, a big betting event, and next week we have another big betting event as well. But before we go on to that, how did you get on last week at the National? Good week?
It was a annoying week actually. I had a very good Thursday. It's a 3-day meet, and I had a good Thursday. I bet a 20-1 winner, and I had another winner at 7-1, and I bet some nice places. It was all going very smoothly. Friday was not too good, and I gave away a big chunk of the money. And then Saturday, I didn't manage to have a winner, but in the Grand National, I did bet the 5th, 6th, and 7th. And I think someone actually wrote in talking about kind of shopping around and offers available. There was a very good offer with one of the firms over here. Normally, I think it's a real bugbear of mine. If you go into the shops, they give you the betting shops here. They give you slightly worse terms. So the places on offer were generally online. You could have got 6 places in the Grand National. Some people were offering 7. But actually, this one firm in their shops, they were giving 8 places, and obviously that meant they gave slightly worse prices. They had slightly lower prices, but it worked out really in your favour to bet the 8 places, and luckily I spotted that and it was available in the shops. So I bet the 5th, 6th and 7th horses each way, and that worked out quite well for me. So I ended up winning on the meeting, but it was a bit of a struggle. It was late nights, early mornings, and I'm absolutely done in. But now I'm starting to wake up and getting excited for the Masters because it's one of my favourite betting events of the year. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is a big betting event of the year, one of the biggest betting sports events across the globe. And I remember doing an interview with you at the start of the year, getting to know the handicapper, and we asked you what your favourite sporting event of all time was. As a racing man, you did say the Masters was your favourite sporting event of the year. Why is that?
Well, there's a couple of things about the Masters that obviously make it completely different to all other golf tournaments. And the main thing is that it's always played at the Augusta National, the same course every year. And that means you get course specialists, and it makes it, in my opinion, it makes it much easier to narrow the field down. I mean, the other thing is that you've got a limited number of players. So this year, just looking at the prices on exchanges, there are 20 players that are 1,000-1. There are 18 players between 500-1 and 1,000-1. There's 22 players between 200-1 and 490-1. If you just look at players that are under 100, there's only 25 players. Well, that makes it a lot easier to knock the field down into shape and to, people tend to, we talked last week a little bit about favourite long shot bias. People tend to get a bit carried away in the Masters and in golf majors generally, trying to bet people at 150-1, 200-1 to win the tournament. Those people often contend, but they very rarely win. And actually, when you compare the bookie prices with the exchange prices, you're paying a huge tax if you try and bet those guys each way. You'll often find you're getting 100-1 about someone that's 180 on the exchange, or even 220 or something like that. So I would never fancy doing that. I like to stick to the people in the sort of 80-1 and under. And there are only 25 of them. There's 12 live players in the field this week. I really don't like betting the live players. I feel like they are, they're experiencing a whole different kind of golf. They're not playing proper competitive golf every week. And I basically just put a line through those. So I find it quite easy to narrow it down. And I've had some success in the past. The Masters have been good for me. I was just looking through, knowing I was coming on today, and I just looked through the last kind of 10 years. I bet Scotty last year. I know he was favourite. He was 9-2, but he did win comfortably. I bet Rahm the year before. He was 9-1. I bet DJ in 2020 at 8-1. 22, I had a good year. I didn't get the winner, but I had 2 placed out of 4 bets. big prices. But the best one I can remember in the last kind of 10 years was Danny Willett, who won at 66 to 1 in 2016. I think, if I remember rightly, he was number 12 in the world at the time, but he was 66 to 1, which I don't know, seemed a bit insane to me.
Well, my claim to fame, one of my claims to fame is
You've got many
in my
claims
previous
to
job
fame.
before. Well, I've got many claims to fame. I had two players yesterday playing for Fulham against Liverpool, one on the Liverpool side and one on the Fulham side. Both went to my old school. What about that? How weird is that? Fulham and Liverpool both went to school in London. Anyway, much way after I was there. One of my claims to fame was before I was doing this, I got offered a job for the newspaper, the Sun newspaper over here. I got given an online job where I could have the Sun Favourite, it was called, and I could write articles and do little videos on the Sun website to try to. They were launching a Sun betting product, and they gave me this job to do it. And my first byline was on the Masters. And I gave Danny Willett at 66 to 1 to win the Masters Championship. And I gave up all hope of it. I took the dog for a walk. I knew he was about 4 behind Jordan Spieth coming into the back 9. And I thought, it's going to be one of them ones with near miss. Anyway, I took the dog for a walk. We went round, and we usually have a stop off and a cheeky little pint on the way back. Stopped off in the pub.
The dog's annoying like that, isn't he? He insists every time.
He always goes in the betting shop as well, and he always goes in the pub. I don't know how. I'll tell you another story about that as well. Anyway, so when I went into the pub to just have a little quick swift half before I went home, looked up, leader of the Masters by 1, Danny Willett. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was in the space of like 40 minutes. I thought,
it was incredible, actually.
And it was amazing.
I mean, he's one of those people, the one-win majors, one time the dog got out. Anything since, really.
No, he's won nothing since he's out. But I mean, I thought at the time I was one of the only people in the world who backed Danny Willett. It's amazing as I tell that story. So many. I backed Danny Willett that year. I bet Danny Willett that year. But it seems to be a lot of people who bet Danny Willett that year. One time the dog got out the garden once and went missing. And next minute there was a post in the Coral betting shop at the top of the road. Has anyone lost the dog? He'd gone to the betting shop. I wasn't in. I'd gone out, and he got out the back garden, and he went looking for me, and he went to the Coral betting shop and sat outside the Coral betting shop. And
he obviously heard that they were offering 10 places on the Masters. He thought he'd better get down there.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. But anyway, he was in the betting shop looking for me. But the Masters is an amazing event, and it also sort of like you had the Grand National. You've now got the Masters. The football season's coming to the end. The summer, spring weather's getting good. It's always a feel good event to me, the Masters. This time of year, you always feel pretty good. The weather's nice. You're sitting outside in a bar. You're walking around in t-shirts. It just has a different feeling from when
your life is completely different to mine. You make it sound so good being Nigel Seeley. I'll be sat here, cooped up, cramped over a computer, staring at screens, and then occasionally running out to the betting shop to try and get some more money on.
Yeah, but at least you can run down in your shorts. You don't have to wear a jacket. I think sporting events are so much better when the weather's nice, spring, like World Cups. When football World Cups or the European Football Championship in the summer.
If I do a shop run tomorrow, I'll get my shorts on.
Now, Monday night football in December, and someone says, do you want to go down and watch Liverpool v Chelsea or something? It's rain. I just feel there's a really good atmosphere. And I love this time of year where the weather changes. It's really good. Anyway, that's enough about me. The Masters is obviously coming on. We're talking about it. Now, when you said there was people under 100, and I'm sure there are people over 100, but they're the 3 people who previously won it who are teeing off. I thought you meant their age. Some of these people in the Masters are over 100. I thought you meant age, under 80s and over 80s. But when you talk about each way, a medium here, there are literally, like say, there's only probably 25 people who can win it, and the bookmakers Bet Rivers are giving a 50 odds the first 7 Neil this week. What's the
It's incredible. I would say, roughly speaking, if the bookmakers were offering a 5th first 5 or a quarter first 4, then the place part of your in the UK we tend to do each way betting, where you're compelled to bet 2 bets, a win and a place. You can't bet place only on these things. So they have separate markets for top 20 or top 10 or whatever. But I would say for the place part of your each way bet, it's going to be about neutral. If you were getting 5 or 6 places with a fifth, and 4 or 5 places with a quarter odds. Most bookmakers in the UK, and I see Bet Rivers, are doing a fifth of the odds on the place. And if you're getting more than 6, and Bet Rivers are giving 7, well, then I think that is positive EV. And you essentially are having a good bet pretty much whoever you back. I mean, obviously shop around for prices. There's lots of firms offering, and people, have players sticking out. Sometimes you'll find a guy who's only 50 to 1 with one book and he's 80 to 1 with another. So you should look around for that. But I think if you're getting 7 places, you're all right. There are some firms in the UK that are doing a few firms doing 8. There's a couple of firms doing 10. I think there's even one firm doing 12, but I'm not sure. They might be doing a sixth of the odds, which is I think it's a bit kind of tight, really, doing it like that. It's because people are used to seeing a fifth, and they might not notice that. I haven't actually checked that this morning. I know they did that once before, and I thought that was a bit sneaky, really. Actually, to be honest, no, they are doing a fifth first 12, which, I mean, that's a bit mad, really. They're just kind of giving money away, really. I mean, I think firms do this as a loss leader. It's quite a good way for them to get sign-ups, and they might limit you on how much you can bet. But I think definitely, if you're getting those kind of terms, anything from 7 places up, really, you can afford to bet 4 or 5 players here. I'm going to put some tips up on Betting Emporium for free. So I know people quite often sort of think that why does the dojo not give more tips? We're not really a tipping show, but I will put some tips up on Betting Emporium. I'm going to publish those Wednesday, 7 p.m. UK time, so quite late on when the market's nice and solid. But I've had a bet already, and I can give you a big price. I think you said, did you say to me Bet Rivers were 50 to 1 about this guy?
Yes, they were. And they're offering the 7 places as well, Neil.
And that was Sepp Stracker. Now, he's top 5 for strokes gained approach, which is a massive stat for this tournament. He's above average for scrambling, which is important. And par 5 performance, I think, is a really big thing that you need to be good at here. He's number 2 in the rankings for that. And also strokes gained tee to green, he's number 6. Another thing is you want to be high in the world rankings. You want to basically be in the top 30 in the world rankings. He's number 16 in the data golf rankings. That's the one that involves all the live people as well. He's number 14 in the official golf rankings that don't count the live people. I'm slightly surprised that he's 50 to 1, really. I kind of feel like, maybe because there's a bit of a bias towards American players, perhaps. I don't really know. I don't know. I mean, he's Austrian, but he's lived in Georgia since he was 14. So he is basically American. And in the Masters, he's gone 30th, 46th, and 16th. So he's managed to play it 3 times without missing the cut. Do you want some Masters trends?
Yeah, this is what we want. It's a Masters special, so we want Masters
well, I'll give you a
before we
few
go
trends.
on to our next subject.
Here we go. 24 of the last 27 winners finished 38th or better the year before winning. That's quite a good one. I quite like that. 26 of the last 27 made the cut the year before in the Masters. So if you missed the cut last year in the Masters, that's a big neg for you. 19 of the last 22 winners were 27 years or older. I think really young guys, they just don't have the experience around here. You know, by definition, if you're a bit older, you've probably played it a few times. And, these greens are so treacherous, you've got to get to know them. Defending champions have a really bad record. That's put me in a big quandary this week because I love Scotty Scheffler and I feel like he's pretty much certain to be in contention. But they have to organise the champions dinner. They have a load of extra commitments during the week. The media scrutiny is on them a lot more. And I think sometimes that puts pressure on the past champions. So the number on that is that, where are we, past champions? 57 out of the last 60 champions failed to defend their title. There's only been 3 times in the last 60 years where somebody's won it back to back. Now Scheffler, he won it. I'm trying to remember now. Did he win it in? Yeah, he won it in 22. And then in 23, he came back with all the extra pressure and the commitments and whatever. And he didn't really.
In 2023, Neil, he got arrested. He got arrested.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well,
how many people can say that? Come back as a defending champion?
No, the arrested. That wasn't the Masters. That was the was that the PGA or the US Open? I can't remember.
I'm sure it was the Masters.
No, it wasn't the Masters.
I thought it was the Masters. Oh, okay.
But anyway, he came back that year and he finished 10th. He just got into some people were doing 10 places, and he just squeaked in. But he did that without really ever contending. And then last year, he didn't have all that commitment and stuff, and he was able to come out and he won it nicely last year. Obviously, we know the stat about rookies. It's a long time since we've had a rookie, Lee Trevino, in 1974, I think it was. So yeah, there's loads of stats you can look at, which I think, or trends that I think are quite useful. And I think because it's on the same course every year, and we know what you need to do well on this course. Basically, you need to be a longish hitter, but not super long, so that you can come in with irons. That's where you win the tournament, with your iron play. So if your second shot, you're taking a kind of 7-iron or an 8-iron or a 9-iron, it means you can land it close on these treacherous greens. But if you're having to come in with a 5-iron or a 4-iron because you're not as long, well, now you're not really, it's coming in at a different angle and you're not really getting yourself close to the pin. So those guys that are really good with their strokes gained tee to green and their strokes gained approach are the people that are really, the good iron players. The other thing that you need to be really good at is scrambling. So playing from around the green. And that really puts me off people like Victor Hovland, who's absolutely terrible at that. Tommy Fleetwood's not very good at that. And actually, Xander Schauffele's been doing badly at that recently. He's having a bit of a bad run. I think he had some injury issues. So normally he would be a player I'd be looking at, but he's probably one I'm going to give a swerve to this week. Another one that's really bad at scrambling is Ludwig Aberg. He played in his first Masters last year and had a good time, but a lot of people will be backing him, but I think he's going to be a poor bet this week. I'll probably avoid him. So I'm narrowing it down. I don't quite know what I'm going to come up with just yet, but I think there's a good chance Scotty's in the mix. I think Colin Morikawa will be hard to leave out. I could see myself possibly backing Russell Henley. I'll have to have a think about that. I could see myself possibly backing Shane Lowry. I'll have a think about that. I've already bet Sepp Straka, so he's certain to be on my list. So I'll probably come up with 5 or 6, but I do think it's a good one to get involved in. I'll also play. I might have a look at some of the things like sort of, top Australian, top UK, various things like that. If you get one of those where there's 4 or 5 players in it and there's one guy you really don't like, I think that's quite a good edge. But I just think with these place terms, the best edge is just playing the outright each way. And, if you've got a limited amount of money to tie up on it, rather than spread it around too many markets, I would just focus on the outright. This is as good a betting as you're getting in a lot of events over the year. I just think it's a really good one to get stuck in. I'll play on this, probably one of my biggest betting events of the year. If I have a good Masters, I'm going to have a good summer.
Yeah, I mean, the value on that place market is absolutely huge. And Bet Rivers, as we say, are offering the 50 odds the first 7. There's a whole host of markets and specials on the Bet Rivers website and on the app now. They'll be added throughout the week, and the tournament gets underway at Augusta. And the Masters, Magnolia Drive on Thursday this week. So check out the website there. Just one question on the Masters, Neil, and I think it's golf betting in general, actually. I mean, it's an age-old question. Do you take the price or do you take the extra each way place? I mean, it's a question that a lot of people ask and a question that I find myself in. I particularly like getting the extra place, but sometimes, you have to accept if you've got an account with Bet Rivers and you want to bet Bet Rivers, they're offering a 7. but they might be a bigger price about a player who's you're getting 7 places. You might take a shorter price and get the 10 places. How do you go about that? I mean, that's something for horse racing that you do. This is something in golf pretty much every week. What do we do? Which is the best angle?
Well, it's something you have to think about all the time. So if you take a player like Scheffler, who's the favourite, a lot of so he's around about plus 450, I think, this week, maybe plus 400. So depending on who you're playing with, that's kind of the prices you're looking at. So if you take a fifth of his odds, you're getting minus $1.25 or minus $1.10 on his place, whether that be 7 places, 6 places, 8 places, 10 places with different firms. Now, if I had to choose with him between whether I would rather have, if I'm looking at 2 books that I can bet with, and one's got plus 400, but they have 8 places, and one's got plus 450, but they have 7 places, I got to say to myself, a lot of Scheffler's price in that sort of minus 110 or minus 125 on him to be in the places is around about is the chance of him coming second, third, or fourth. He's not really that likely to come 8th. But if I took someone who's kind of 8th in the betting and 8th in the world, maybe, or just say someone like Shane Lowry, he's what is he? Yeah, he's like 7th in the betting list, roughly, and he's he's number 7 in the world. So his chance of finishing 7th or 8th is considerably more than the chance of Scheffler. So if I was betting a player like Lowry each way, I'd much more likely to try and get the place, the extra place, than the price.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm betting someone like Scheffler each way or McIlroy, I'll be more concerned in getting the price, because I think more of there's more factored in to their price on their chance of winning, whereas in Lowry's price, the market is considering a lot more their chance of placing. The other thing is that, just generally speaking, you can look at it as, say you're choosing between whether you get 40 to 1 or 50 to 1, and the firm offering 40 to 1 is giving you 7 places, and the firm offering you 50 to 1 is only giving 6 places. Well, I think that's about neutral. Or certainly if it was 45 to 1 and 50 to 1, that would be pretty neutral. It doesn't really matter which way you pick. If actually 40 to 1 and 50 to 1 for one place, I'd take the 50 to 1, and that would be slightly better. But if it was 45 to 1 and 50 to 1, it doesn't really matter which one you do. So you can sort of say if it's one price out, it's one place out, that's going to be about the same. But when the gap gets big, and say you're choosing between 33 to 1 to get 7 places and 50 to 1 to get just 6 places, well, now that's too big a gap for one place. So I'd rather have the 50 to 1 and have the 6 places. Obviously, it can be very frustrating. I've had years where, I chose to bet somebody first 6 because of a price and they finished 7th, or, you just have to let that stuff wash over you. It's like playing poker, you lose with a pair of kings against a pair of 4s or something. It just happens as part of the game, and move on. Don't even think about it. But, that will happen, obviously. And more conservative people would probably say, well, I would always take the extra places and forego the prices to give myself more chance of winning. And if you do that, your variance will be lower. But I think in the long run, you need to play it on a case by case and just accept that sometimes it's going to be pretty frustrating that you bet a bunch of people first 7 and then you choose to bet one guy first 6 because you're getting a bigger price. Of course, he's the guy that finishes 7th. That's just, the luck of the draw, isn't it?
I think you're right there with the difference between the market leaders, though. I mean, Scotty Scheffler, for example, is plus 330 with the firm in question offering 12 places. Bet Rivers are joint best price in the land at plus 450 with 7 places. And I think there's a massive difference on the place market there at 100, at plus 330 and plus 450, that I'd have to take the
some of the UK
and not get the. Hopefully, then I'm betting that he doesn't finish in those dreaded 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th places.
Some of the UK firms that are offering, large numbers of places, 10 and 12, when you look at their prices, they're just not really competing on a lot of the players. They're easily the worst price. So you have to weigh up, how you want to play it. I mean, obviously they're going to be shorter because they're paying more places. How much shorter? Well, you can work it out. You can do it mathematically, but to an extent, if you're shopping around for the best all the time, you'll find they're quite competitive, these firms, and it doesn't, in the long run, it doesn't really matter that much which way you go on those things. It will work out.
It's just nice to back a winner, isn't it? Doesn't matter if you get 7,
well,
12.
That would be very nice,
but it'd be nice just to bet the winner, really. That's the main thing. But obviously,
how many players will you back, Nige, do you think?
Do you know what? I've got to tell. I'm away. I'm at Monte Carlo, the tennis. I'm going to Monte Carlo on Wednesday. I won't watch one. I won't watch one ball of it. I'll stay in Nice though. I won't go. I'm not going to Monte Carlo.
Nice is much nicer.
Listen, yeah, I like Old Town Nice. I'll be in Nice for a couple of days, and I'll just get the training to Monte Carlo for 2 days, and then we've got some friends who live in Antibes. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. So we'll go down there for a day, and I don't think I'm going to get much of a chance to watch it.
Cap Ferrat and Nice is lovely. I like all of those places, but just don't like Monte Carlo. I think it's full of fake people. Really, it's not my thing at all.
I just go to the tennis club. Watch it. It's probably the best setup. It's a really small place.
The facilities,
very hustly and bustly. Yeah. The tennis is really cramped to the side. But
surely people there will be watching the golf, though. Those kind of people are really into golf, aren't they?
I don't think so. Be watching the golf there, no. They'd rather be seen there on Instagram taking a couple of pictures with the backdrop, and that's the interest. But I don't think I'd watch it. I'll probably follow you on Straka. I'll probably play. Producer John runs a competition every week, every major. I'll play in his competition. I've got a couple of friends of mine who do these various different competitions. I'll play in them, but I don't think it's one of them ones that you've got to watch it. But I'll be back for the final round, so I might have a few bets on the final round.
What do you think about? I love it. What do you think about McIlroy? That's the other big question, because obviously he's had his demons in the Masters, and it's been a tournament that's bugged him basically over his whole lifetime. But on paper, this looks like his best ever chance to win it. He's in all the
until the last time we said
well.
that. We've said it before, though, haven't we?
And he's coming in good form, but his price has shortened right up in the last few weeks.
I think Rory. I'm not a massive golf better, but I have dabbled in golf. I've got a decent enough opinion. I mean, I remember when he played in his home Open Championship, wasn't it? The one that's in Northern Ireland.
Yes.
In Portrush. The pressure on him to win it was absolutely incredible. And he
had such a bad start
82,
that year.
And then he came back and shot another and missed the cut by one thing. I think Rory, to me, when everybody expects him to do well and the pressure's on him, and I'm not sure whether he wins it. I think he's a sort of a fella who could win a Masters by coming off the pace. I'd rather bet Rory 4 behind going into the final round and everyone blowing it in front rather than taking him at a big price at the start of the tournament. So, or a short, he's going to be not even a big price, but he'd be a short price to win it. At the odds available, what are Bet Rivers here? Bet Rivers are plus 550 Rory McIlroy. I mean, I could plus 550 Rory or 33-1 Shane Lowry. I'd rather bet Shane Lowry all day long. And if there was a bet,
I think
Irishman, I think I'd bet Lowry. I think I'd bet Lowry because
I've not really done well on Lowry over the years, but I feel like I'm going to have to bet him this week. I haven't really had a proper final decision yet, but it's going to be hard to leave him out, I think.
I know you said that you got a bit of a negative for him, but I think his game is perfect for Augusta, and he will win it at some stage. But I think Aberg's got a cracking chance this week. I know he's like 20-1, but he has got the game to blow it. He's such a big hitter.
Well, I think he's a great golfer, and I
think
he's an interesting player. But I'm not absolutely convinced that Augusta's going to be his place. I think the scrambling, the around the green stuff, I just don't think he's got that in his game at the moment. And Actually, I started looking. I think par five performance is a really big stat. He's better than average. He's 118 on the rankings and that. The average is 163rd. Sorry, there's 163 in it. But yeah, that's quite low. His scrambling is pretty poor, and his strokes gained approach is not very good. I think him and Hovland, I think both of them suffer from that around the green stuff. I just think they're not very good. And you have to create shots in the Masters. You're off. Those greens are so treacherous. Sometimes you're putting from off the green, or those little chip shots, just trying to kill it stone dead, not leave yourself a 7-footer. I think that's where those two boys really struggle.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see it all pan out here. You'll be able to follow. I think Simon Holden, our golf expert, is on Betting Weekly Live one day this week to preview the Masters, and he's also going to be available on our Instagram account at Because We Win, giving picks on a daily basis, two balls, prop markets, the tournament winner, all kinds of stuff. And also he's given a tip exclusively on our newsletter, which you can subscribe to at bettingweeklystudios.com. Before I leave you for this week, Neil, we just got a question from a regular viewer on all our shows, actually. Villa Fan. If you've ever seen Villa Fan, he's always in our live chat. His name's Adam. He's a very good fan of the show. He's always comment on channels. He sent a very, very long message across to us, which I forward on to you.
I did have a read
this morning for you to have a look at. Yeah, he's basically saying that he believes now, just from his own records of trying to bet regularly and keep records, he's believing that he's finding it harder now since he started 5 years ago to make money. And he's asking the question, as a pro bettor, is it harder to make money now? Are the mistakes still there in general? We're talking about each way terms now. Are the bookmakers giving anything away on each terms, or are they cutting back on that? Best price guarantees, which is a big thing as well, has gone as well from a lot of sports, horse racing in particular. So as a bettor, someone's been sort of steadily increasing his bankroll. In the last couple of years, he's gone backwards a little bit, and he feels that it's a little bit harder now. From my perspective, when I read that email, for us, I think it's harder because I think you can't on any given day. You don't. For me particular, I don't know what liability I'm going to have with a bookmaker. So if I woke up every day and said, okay, I'm going to bet 200, 300 pounds on a particular day, I knew that I could probably over a period of time win or lose an X amount of percentage. Nowadays, on any given day, I don't know. Some days I could be restricted because one of the accounts might be limited, as I've said on the show many times for funds. But I do from when we started, where it was literally pen and paper, put the odds up, have a go. Markets where we knew there was a kind of we would make mistakes and we'd move the market very, very quickly. I do think the pricing mechanism that the bookmakers use nowadays in terms of the pricing, the computer systems and the programming they have now is absolutely top notch. So, any slight edge sometimes, most of the year, you're not going to get the edge that we used to have. The team news is factored in, all the stuff that we used to have. People know all that kind of thing much more ahead of us. But there are certain anomalies that come along in a season, in a period of season where there is still value. And I think now at the end of the football season where teams aren't motivated enough, teams make, body language of football sides that are not like, there's no computer that can factor that in. They still got the metrics, they know what the price is. And sometimes you can be ahead of that. That's where I still think there's value. But I do believe week on week and week, it's much harder to beat the books as it was when we started in this industry in the 1990s.
Well, I think the thing to say is that whether it's harder or easier is a tricky one, but it's always changing. Everything's always changing in betting. I would say also that if Villa Fan is like betting a lot of horse racing, I think in the UK market that is getting harder because the bookmakers, that's an expensive product for them and they don't want to offer lost leaders. So, there used to be a thing in the UK that one of the big firms, whenever there was racing on TV, would guarantee to be the top price, match the best price of all the other firms' prices. Well, this meant that effectively on the TV races, you could bet to no percentage, really. There was no profit margin. So If you were betting on a Saturday on the horses and you could get on with that firm, you effectively, were having a fair shot at it. You hardly had any margin going against you. They stopped doing that a few years ago. The place terms, we had Cheltenham recently and Aintree last week. And in past years, there was a cutthroat competitiveness between the large bookmakers where they were trying to offer extra places in every race, and sometimes kind of suicidal extra places. 8 places in an 11-runner race they offered one day. It's kind of mental, really, and it was almost impossible. Well, it was impossible to lose. You could if you just bet every single runner. They don't really do that kind of thing anymore. So the simple answer to the question
can I just ask you a question?
Yeah,
can I just ask you a question, Ed? Just before but why, if you had, why do that? I mean, I understand they want to get customers in, but it's like saying to
it's a loss leader. It's just like a supermarket having an offer. They want to get people in the door, don't they? And then they hope that you stay.
Yeah, but they don't want them there for long. They don't want them there for any period of time, do they? They get them in the door, and then all of a sudden, the following week, when it's the bread and butter stuff, you could have whatever you want. It's like, come into the supermarket. We're giving loaves of bread away for £1 or 50p or something. Everyone gets a loaf of bread, and then they come back next week. Oh no, you can't buy more than one loaf of bread. And if you do buy a loaf of bread,
I know what
you're
saying, but I have seen it from both sides of the counter, and I do know people that work.
Yeah, but if you're bringing in customers, and the idea is to bring in customers and look after customers and have customers in, then you want to make an experience. There's no point of having given them a good experience for 4 days of the calendar year and then treat them like rubbish.
I understand what you're saying, but of course, what they would say is that they have to be very careful because they have so many bonus abusers, people opening up multiple accounts simply to play the loss leaders and not to just use the account in a normal way. So there's 2 sides to it, isn't there? But I do think on horse racing, there's much less of that kind of stuff being offered in the UK now. But there's a switch towards trying to encourage, and obviously there's also trying to encourage people to do more same game parlays, because there's a higher margin on that. And UK bookmakers would say they have about a 40% margin on same game parlays. So there's a constant pressure whenever you go onto the site. If you're trying to look for a sort of standard market, you pretty much got to wade through 100 same game parlays and scroll down to find what you actually want to bet on. And it's very tempting to suddenly see a few same game. And obviously you can get value in same game parlays. Some of them are really good, but a lot of them are quite derivative, and you're not getting much value with them. So I think in that way it's getting harder. But then look at the Masters this week. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. 7 and 8 places is a very kind of standard offering, and some people are going 10 places and even 12. They are literally just giving money away, and I agree that in some ways it's getting harder. There are things where these kind of promotions are being taken away, but in other ways they're still there. What you have to do is make sure that the proportion of the money that you stake in a year, which is staked when the odds are well in your favour, is high. And maybe you have to accept that, well, some of these other things that I used to bet on, they're not really offering me very tempting odds anymore, and I have to cut back on those. And you have to shop around.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your... Go on. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, you need to be careful to shop around and make sure you're getting good prices, and look out for when people are best price about something, and it's never been easy. I think also in terms of you were talking about football. I think that's exactly right what you said about the odds compiler. So in the old days, bookmakers would have teams of people setting the odds. And this has been gradually replaced by AI and, generic computer-generated odds. And when I look at a list of same-game parlays, and they're all just based on things that are very solid. So if we know that the game is a 2.5 goal game, and there's a whole load of parlays that involve whether there'll be 3 goals or 2 goals or 1 goal or 4 goals, Well, if we know that 2.5 is a correct price, and there's millions traded in Asia either side of that, and everybody knows that that's the correct price, well, then the derived price on whether there'll be 4 goals or 1 goal or 5 goals, it's just not going to be wrong. That's never going to be wrong, and you're never going to get value having a bet on that market. So you need to knock those things on the head. You need to look for when it's your opinion against someone else's opinion. When they put up a special on how many eagles there will be in the first round, it's stats based, and you can go back and look, but you can have an opinion on it. You can say, well, I think, there's been a lot of rain in Augusta this morning, and, maybe that's going to change the way the course plays or whatever. These are interpretations of the odds. You can't really have an interpretation on the 4 goal thing when the market at 2.5 is so solid. And I think, you talking about players being on the beach at the end of the season, they've given up on the season because they can't get promoted or relegated. I think that is quite hard for people to price in. Some firms go over the top and say, well, this team's got everything to play for. They need to win against another team who has no reason to try. Motivation is quite hard to price up. We had a tip. I'll give a shout out, actually, because you gave a shout out. I got a message last week after the show from a regular viewer called Jody. Jody's a great guy, and he comes from Hull. And I should have. It was after the show. I couldn't pass it on the show, unfortunately. He said to me that Hull were playing at Sheffield Wednesday, and Sheffield Wednesday hadn't paid their players last week for some reason or another. They got some financial difficulty, and we should bet Hull at plus 300. Well, they waited until the 95th minute to score and win 1-0, but you get paid on that. So thanks for that, Jody.
That's because the Sheffield Wednesday players weren't getting paid overtime.
That was what it was. That was what it was. But I think things like that are hard to factor into the odds. And when you're looking at, the computer-generated odds are often based on league table positions, average goals at home, average goals away, home form, away form, that kind of thing. And they're not factoring in outside motivational issues. And I think that still gives you an opportunity to beat these markets. Yeah. And also, I think if you are a fan of a lower division football team or a college sports team where perhaps they're a little bit less known, and you're reading local media about them or specialist blogs and websites that focus just on those teams, I think you can be ahead of the market, and I think you should probably concentrate on that. I'm a person who bets on all kinds of sports, but there's a lot to be said for specialising and just being in one sport. Sean is excellent on tennis. I don't know what he's like on other sports, but I would think it would be hard for him to have the deep level of knowledge that he's got on tennis in too many other sports. He may have 1 or 2 other sports. I don't really know. I've never really asked him, but I'm imagining that he's not doing as many. He hasn't got as detailed a knowledge on motor racing or cricket as he's got on tennis. So I think if you get that detailed level of knowledge, you can beat the market. Although tennis is quite a tough market, really. Yeah, there's a lot of knowledge in the market. I don't know. I mean, am I just overly optimistic, Nigel, or is everything doom and gloom?
No, nothing's doom and gloom, but I think there's always angles. But I do think on a week-to-week basis or day-to-day basis, it's harder to beat the books in terms of their pricing up mechanism. I think it's harder. The human error isn't there anymore that there was in 10 years ago. And they used to price so many random things up, which were just guesswork a lot of the times, but guesswork. Well, and you were allowed to get decent wages on as well. But one thing I will say, I mean, you're absolutely right to say it, and it's probably been your sort of your message throughout these dojos is when you have the opportunity, like we're going to get this week with 7 places with Bet Rivers on the Masters where big bet liabilities are there. When we break it down, it's really only a 30 runner event, and you can get some bookmakers paying 12 places. This is when you've got to get the lot, and as you said, whenever there's an opportunity to strike, you've got to take your opportunity to strike and then hold on for a couple of weeks until the next
obviously bet
opportunity comes.
responsibly. Don't have the whole
obviously bet responsibly. But when you've got a chance to get 12, you're not going to get a chance to get double figure places until probably the Open
how many
Championship
kidneys
comes
got
in golf
one man need anyway?
Well, anyway, I would just we'll legislate that. I mean, to at least have responsibility, don't go absolutely crazy. But when there is opportunities like this is the time that you've got to probably go and get them, because they don't come around once a week, they don't come around once a month, they come around every now and again in these big sporting events, and the bookmakers are happy to take your wagers on them. So while they're happy to accommodate and they're offering good value, you've got to take it. That's been it for Betting Weekly Dojo. Hopefully we don't come on next week and say we've had 15 bets on the Masters. They finished 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th,
It's going to be
20th,
Seb Stracker.
all the way down to 25th.
Green jacket for Seb.
Hopefully we've got a Seb Stracker. Yeah, a screen jacket with Seb. If hopefully he can allow for us as well. Remember, there's so much content coming here on the Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. Really huge amount of content coming out. We're just launching a new show every Monday to Wednesday, Betting Weekly Live, which is 1 p.m. But Betting Weekly Tennis Live, which is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 o'clock in the UK. We'll be going through all the in-play tennis, what's going on in Monte Carlo, all the big talking points on tennis, the betting. And we've got 3 new faces on that show. Mitch Michaels, our host, Dustin Fox, and we also have Tim Dennis, who made his debut on Betting Weekly Live. The Champions League tomorrow starts. Big match. Arsenal hosting Real Madrid. The action is going really big there in the Champions League. Betting Weekly Live tomorrow. I'll be on there on Wednesday. Tomorrow, I'll be on tomorrow. And on Wednesday, it'll be Will White back looking at the Champions League as well. And Monte Carlo Open game bet match. Sean Calvert's been on fire this morning. 2 bets this morning, 2 winners as well, both at plus money. So lots of content coming your way. Premier League action as well, and European. And obviously every Monday or Tuesday, the dojo with myself and Neil. So it's really getting busy at this time of year. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the content. Give us a little comment. Anything you want us to discuss here, we're happy to discuss it. Any question you want, we'll mention it on here as well. So keep your comments coming, keep your questions coming, and keep those topics coming and the interest going as well. Neil, good luck on one of your busiest weeks of the year. Hopefully you cash lots of tickets. And if anybody wants to know your picks, where are they going to go? Where can they go and get them?
They're going to be on www.bettingemporium.com. It'll be free to look at. I think you have to register, put your email in or whatever to be able to access it. But there's no charge, so and we don't spam you too much. So feel free to go over there and look at it. But I think Seb Stracker will definitely be one of the picks. 100% it will be.
Yep. Seb Stracker. 50 to 1 with Bet Rivers, 50 odds first 7. If he wins next week, we'll be doing this from where's the tennis next week? I think it's in Barcelona. We might go there for the week.
That'd be lovely.
If this wins, we'll be lovely. We'll do it on location. Take care. Good luck with your bets, and we'll speak to you all again next Monday. All the best.